Mr. Speaker, this motion by Honorable Abonta, with regard to calling for the details of the agreement between Nigeria and Russia on the completion of our Jokuta Steel Company project. Mr. Speaker, this motion actually touches the fact that as a government, we have the executive arm, the legislative arm, and the judiciary. And we should be acting in concert. And that is the only way that due process, the only way that policy process and policy cycle of government can be actualized in the real terms. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, if you remember the 8th Assembly, you will realize that the executive severally had proposed handing a Jokuta over to various entities. Even prior to this administration, there were various efforts to hand over a Jokuta to, various organs, and we know the consequences of such so-moto actions. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, there is need for us to be on the same page with regard to the processes of a Jokuta. An entity that should have been completed 30 years back is still in the process of being completed. Even when the Russians left, it was 95% completed. We are still in the process of completing 95% for the past 30 years. And that is why we must get it right. Mr. Speaker, I remember very well that in the 8th Assembly, this Parliament introduced an infrastructure bill on our Jokuta, and you were the prime mover then that we need to complete our Jokuta by ourselves. And we don't need to hand it over to anybody. You were at the forefront of it. There was a specific infrastructure bill to that effect. So this motion speaks to the spirit of that effort, that we should be on the same page. So when you see any serious effort, which in this case, I believe that to go and reactivate Russian contact for the completion, I think it is in the right direction. And what the government needs to do is that all stakeholders should be on the same page. The minimum the president or the executive can do is to make sure that members of the Committee on Steel are briefed. This ordinarily does not even require a motion. It should be done in the course of the executive functions and in the course of legislative activities, that we need to be brought up to speed on what is happening there. There shouldn't be any memory loss or any selective amnesia with regard to an entity that has the capacity to create 10,000 jobs and over 200,000 consequential jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think this motion captures what we did, the effort we did in the 8th Assembly, the effort we made to make sure that we abrogated any attempt to concession it to any private company that will go and vandalize that, that industry. So we have succeeded that now, since the executive in their wisdom and in living up to the spirit of Parliament and what we did, that the people who started constructing it should come back and do it. Since they are coming up to speed with our intentions, what they should now do is to also bring Parliament up to speed with regard to what they are doing. Government comes, government goes. But we must make sure we retain some institutional memory with regard to the processes. And that is why this Parliament must work in concert with the executive to make sure that the efforts that are being made follows all due processes and it is not ambushed by any way or manner by some level of idiosyncratic attitude by any executive member or by anybody in the process. So I think this motion captures that spirit, and it should, for me, should have been done in the ordinary course of committee assignment. Thank you very much.